In this video, we'll be showing you how to open a file in vStitcher. When you're going through the lessons in the university, you'll often be able to download files so you can follow along and try the actions out for yourself. Most of the lessons will provide a BW file for you to open in vStitcher. A BW file is a browser file type. In another lesson, we'll cover in more detail the different file types you'll need to know. Let's practice how you can open a BW file before a lesson if needed. For a BW file, there are a few ways to open it. As best practice, we first download the BW file that is available in the download section for this lesson. Simply click on the file and save it on your computer. We recommend saving the files you download into organized folders so that it's easier to find the file you need when going through the lessons. If using a Windows machine, the first way to open a file starts by going to File on your computer and right-clicking the file. Then click Open With, and then click vStitcher. If you have multiple versions of vStitcher installed on your computer, you can select which version you want to open the file with. The second way is to open the file from vStitcher. We first launch the vStitcher application. We go to the top left of the application. This is the main menu. Click File, then click on Open. We select the BW file we want to open. Then click Open. Once the garment is loaded, we will usually see 2D patterns visible within the 2D window. If you don't see the 2D window, place your cursor within the 3D window and click Tab on your keyboard. The next thing we check is whether or not the file already has a snapshot. A snapshot is a previously saved simulation of the garment. More information on snapshots will be covered in a separate lesson. If there is an existing snapshot, an image of the garment is displayed here. If we click on the image, the saved garment simulation loads in the 3D window. Note, not all files have a snapshot, so don't panic if there's no snapshot available when you open a file. And that's how you open a BW file in vStitcher. For more information, visit our help website. Introduce you to the vStitcher interface. As we've shared in the previous lesson, when we first open the program without a file, it looks like this. Do note that the Mac and PC interface may differ slightly. For this lesson, we're using the same file that you downloaded from the previous lesson. So we make sure we have opened it. If we have not, remember that we can go to File, Open, then locate and select the correct BW file. Okay, let's begin. At the very top of our screen is the main menu. If we're using a PC, we have File, Edit, View, Tools, 3D Environment, Garments, and Help. If we're using a Mac, next to File, it will say vStitcher. Some of the options available in the main menu are opening and importing files, saving files, loading the preferences and keyboard shortcuts, adjusting the view options, loading the help site, and more. The help link takes us to the online help center, which is a great resource for more information on the interface and all of the vStitcher features. Under the main menu, we have the main toolbar. We'll cover this in more detail shortly. The two windows you see are the 2D window and the 3D window. On the left is the 2D window. This is where the garment pattern pieces are displayed. At the top of the 2D window, we have the 2D window toolbar, also known as the Hide and Show toolbar. This is because the tools there mainly hide or show certain aspects of what displays in the 2D window. Note that if we forget what any of these tools does, hovering the mouse over the tool icon displays a tooltip to remind you what the tool does. The first tool toggles the display of textures. The next tool toggles the display of stitches. The third tool on the 2D window toolbar toggles the display of sizes and grading, if any. The next tool, the allowance tool, toggles the display of seam allowances if there are any. The internal tool toggles the display of internal lines. Note that the internal lines are colored pink to distinguish them from pattern piece edge lines, which are colored blue. The next tool, Trace Changes, is a little different. When you make changes to a pattern piece, an outline of the original pattern piece before the change is displayed. You'll learn more about this in a separate lesson. The Shape Info tool toggles the display of basic shape information in the 2D window. The Grain Line tool toggles the display of the grain line. The next tool allows you to turn the background grid off and on. And the last tool toggles the rulers, from which we're able to drag guidelines onto the 2D window. Underneath the 2D window toolbar, there's a tool that allows us to flip our pattern pieces to an inside view. Note that there is a yellow bounding box as well as the label at the bottom of the window, Inside View, to remind us what side of the pattern we're on. The window on the right is called the 3D window. This is where the avatar and dressed garment are displayed. Now let's look in the 3D window toolbar, which is at the top of the 3D window. Just like the 2D window toolbar tools, if we forget what any of these tools does, hovering the mouse over the tool icon displays a tooltip. The first tool displays the tension map. The tension map is a visual display of fabric stretch in the length and width of the fabric. The next tool turns on the pressure map. The pressure map is a color-coded display of the pressure on all points of the garment on the avatar. The 3D measurements tool allows us to measure between points on the avatar and store the results. Next is the tool that toggles fast mode. If we're working with very complicated and multi-layered artwork and textures, turning fast mode on improves simulation speed. The next tool toggles the undefined pieces. More information on this can be found in another lesson. The Ray Trace tool is a feature that allows us to see a real-time preview of the rendered garment using V-Ray. The next tool is a drop-down with the option to change our avatar's pose. There are thumbnails of preset poses along with the option to create our own poses. The pose selected is reflected on the toolbar. On the right side of the 3D window toolbar, there are a set of viewing options. These are preset camera views from the front, left, back, and right, as well as any custom views we may have created. The last button on the top right of the toolbar allows us to undock our 3D window and drag it. For example, this might be useful if we're using an additional monitor. While in the 3D window, here's a useful tip. By pressing the Tab key, we can expand the 3D window. Pressing the Tab key undoes this. Note we can do the same thing with the 2D window. To the left of the 2D window are the Resources tabs. Note the different tabbed sections across the top: 2D, Materials, 3D, and Params. The 2D tab displays an expandable list of pattern pieces and their contents: edges, internal lines, artwork, and so on. The Materials tab has two tabs of its own: Garment and Libraries. The Garment part displays the components that make up our garment: fabrics, seams, artwork, trim, and colors. The Libraries part displays the available material libraries. The 3D tab has three tabs of its own: Avatars, Snapshots, and Closet. The Params tab has two tabs of its own: Rulers and Stitches. On the far right side of the screen is the Context view. This view changes depending on what we select in the Resources tabs, 2D window or 3D window. Let's revisit the main toolbar at the top. The first tool on the left allows us to easily switch from our standard workspace to other workspaces. For instance, we have the Colorway workspace, the Fold and Hang workspace, and more. The standard workspace is the workspace labeled Home. The interface is as we have gone through previously. If we load another workspace, for example, the Colorways workspace, we see a different interface. All of the other workspaces will be covered in more detail in other lessons. To head back to the standard workspace, click Home. The next tool is a drop-down list of recent files. We can open one of these files by clicking on its name. The Save tool is next. Note that it is enabled when there are changes we need to save. Next, we have Undo, History, and Redo. The best practice is to check the history before using Undo or Redo. Our next group of tools are the Action tools: Select, Texture, Stitch, Assign, Insert, and Pen. Note the horizontal contextual menu below the tools. The options here change depending on what tool we select. The mouse cursor also changes depending on what tool we have selected. This is a great way to check to see we are on the right tool. The Arrange tool is next. We use this to tell the program where we would like to arrange our pattern pieces on the avatar. After the Arrange tool is a drop-down for size sets. If we have a graded pattern and graded avatar set, we can simulate our size set on different sized avatar bodies. The next drop-down button is for snapshots. The next drop-down button is the Colorways tool. This gives us a quick preview of the available colorways. We can click View All to take us to the Colorway workspace. The next set of tools are known as simulation tools. Prepare mode is one of the steps we need to complete before simulation. When we are in prepare mode, we see garments placed with a square grid. We use prepare mode to check that our pattern pieces are in the right place. We can adjust if needed. The dress button simulates the garment in the 3D window so that we can see how the garment dresses and drapes on the avatar. Clicking Finish stops the simulation in the 3D window. Note the Undress tool, which allows us to undress the avatar easily and quickly. Lastly, there is the Styling tool, which allows us to make styling adjustments to the dress garment. On the far right side of the main toolbar, we have the camera icon. The camera icon is for when we want to create a render, a text pack, or print to a file. The Style Zone button allows us to share our creations on our online collaboration platform. And that is an introduction to the VStitcher interface. For more information, visit our help website. In this video, we will introduce you to System Preferences. Preferences allow you to adjust how certain features work to best suit you. If you're using a Mac, we would go to the main menu and click VStitcher, then Preferences. In a PC, we can see the preferences by going to the main menu and clicking Edit, then Preferences. The Preferences dialog displays with tabs on the left side. The first tab is the General section. Here we can choose the appearance, language, system units, and more. For the appearance, we can choose between light mode and dark mode. System units allows you to select between centimeters, millimeters, or inches. 3D navigation mode options will be covered in the 3D navigation lesson. Do note that when making changes to those settings we have mentioned, we will need to restart the application once we click OK for the new settings to be applied. We recommend selecting Show Version Info in Title Bar. If we ever need to submit a support ticket, the version info is often very helpful. We also recommend selecting Enable Auto Backup. If selected, while we're working, there is an automatic backup of the file saved every minute in the background. If you are working on a Mac and using an Apple mouse, you may want to select Reverse Mouse Wheel if you find you're having trouble navigating. The second tab is Images and Colors. The Adobe Tools Color Profiles section allows us to set up our color preferences the way we want them to be. The Materials section is where we add the path to our image editor. This allows us to edit our images externally using, in this case, Photoshop. The next tab is 2D Window. Here we can set various properties of that window. For example, we can set the background color and the grid color. In addition, we can set the grid spacing and the seam allowance color. Next is the Resources tab. We have selected Use Built-in Libraries, giving us access to the cloud libraries. We recommend setting Avatar Modest Look to Always. This makes sure that whatever file we open or import, the avatar shows with Modesty Look on. If you're using an Alvanon form, you'll need to add the path to your permissions folder and the permissions file. More information will be covered in a separate lesson. Next, we have the Simulation tab. The two options here are enabled by default, and we recommend that they remain enabled. Next is the 3D Annotations tab. The 3D Annotations feature allows us to add comments to our garments. Typically, this is used for fit comments. We type in our name so that our comments are correctly identified. The next tab is Tech Pack. We can choose the template of the tech pack we want to export. Here we can add details of any tech pack processor we may use. We can also add the location for the tech packs we export. The next tab we'll look at is Rendering. This is where we add the details of the render engine we would like to use. We can use Blender, V-Ray, or Modo. The last two tabs are Smart Design and Plugins, which we can leave them as they are. Note the import and export options at the bottom left of the dialog box. Once we have the preferences how we want them, we can export them as a file. Then we can share the file with other users. We click OK to apply any changes. There will be a prompt if we need to restart the application. And that is the key information you need to know about preferences in VStitcher. For more information, check out our help website.
In this video, we'll introduce you to keyboard shortcuts. Keyboard shortcuts allow you to quickly utilize software features. In a PC, we can see them by going to the main menu and clicking Edit, then Keyboard. If we were using a Mac, we would go to Main Menu and click VStitcher, then Keyboard. The Keyboard Shortcuts dialog box displays with tabs along the top. The first tab is All. Here, we can see all the functions that we have in our keyboard shortcut. On the right side of each function is the shortcut. We can use the other tabs to view the shortcuts in categories. If we want to change a keyboard shortcut, we can click on the shortcut and type in a new command. If we put in the same shortcut that is already used by another function, a yellow caution sign is displayed. We need to change that shortcut. The Keyboard Shortcuts dialog box also has a search bar. Note that Import, Export, and Print options along the bottom left of the dialog box. Once we have the shortcuts how we want them, we can export them as a file. Then, we can share the file with other users. And if we want, we can print the shortcuts to a hard copy. That's an overview of keyboard shortcuts. For more information, check out the Browser Help Center.
In this video, we'll be learning how to navigate within the 2D window. Navigation within the 2D window is simple. Let's first enlarge the 2D window. We place the cursor within the 2D window and click on Tab on our keyboard. To zoom in and out, we can use the scroll wheel on our mouse. To pan within the window, we can press down the spacebar and use our cursor to drag within the 2D window. We can also press down our scroll wheel and move our mouse to pan. On the top right of the 2D window, we will find some navigation tools. You can use these three options to zoom in and out. However, we highly recommend getting comfortable with navigating using your cursor instead so that you can work more efficiently within the 2D window. If we click on this icon, the 2D window will zoom out so that we can view all pieces. To move and edit patterns within the 2D window, we mostly use the Select tool. With the Select tool, you can drag and move your patterns and elements within the garment around. When we choose the Select tool, all the available options are displayed under the horizontal contextual menu. We enable or disable these options by clicking them. If an option is grayed out, it means that it is disabled. The first option is Edit Points. We need to enable this if we want to move or edit a point. You can try using your cursor to edit the rectangle piece. Simply click and drag. The Pieces option is what we need to enable if we want to move or edit a pattern piece. When disabled, it locks all pattern pieces in the 2D window, so we cannot move or edit them. Next is Internal. We need to enable this if we want to move or edit an internal line or point. When disabled, it will lock all the internal elements in the 2D window. The gizmo is a helpful option. If this is enabled, it displays on the garment and allows us to scale and rotate pattern pieces. The Snap To option helps us make accurate edits. As we get close to our target, the software displays yellow crosshairs to show we are snapping to. For example, with Snap to Point, you can move one pattern piece to another, joining at point. With Snap to Edge, you can move one pattern piece to another, joining at edge. Another option is to snap to the grid. For this to work, you have to show the grid in the 2D window first. Snap to Guideline allows the pattern to snap to any guidelines added in the 2D window. We can show rulers in the 2D window, then drag a guideline from the ruler. Now we can try snapping to the guideline. The Slide option allows us to alter pattern pieces while maintaining the edge angles. Finally, let's not forget one of the best features of the Select tool. When we select a pattern in the 2D window, the matching pattern is automatically selected in the 3D window and the other way around. We recommend you spend some time to practice navigating within the 2D window. Before you move on to the next lesson, you should be able to do the following within the 2D window. Zoom in and out with the mouse, pan, move patterns and internal elements, edit patterns with the cursor, and rotate patterns with the gizmo. And that's it. For more information, visit our help site. In this video, we'll demonstrate how to navigate in the 3D window. Before we start, if you have made any changes to the patterns within the file, we want to start with the original file again. Reopen the same file without saving the changes. We have different 3D navigation modes in VStitcher. There is the default browser mode, and there is the Maya navigation mode. Let's walk through the default browser navigation mode first. Before we start, we maximize the 3D window. To do so, we place the cursor in the 3D window and press Tab on the keyboard. Load the snapshot if the avatar is not dressed. Okay, let's get started. When we move the mouse in the 3D window, the cursor changes to directional arrows. When we click the background, the view changes according to the direction of the arrow. We can hold the left mouse button down to keep the view moving in the same direction. When we release the mouse button, the view stops moving. To rotate in the opposite direction, place the cursor in the background of the other side of the 3D window. Press and hold the left mouse button. As we press and hold the mouse button, we can move the cursor around in the 3D window to adjust the direction of rotation. To move up or down, we move the cursor to the top or bottom of the screen. Note that the rotation speed changes according to the distance between the cursor and the avatar. The closer the cursor is to the avatar, the slower it rotates. The further it is from the avatar, the faster it rotates. We can also use the scroll wheel on the mouse to zoom in and out. Note that if the zoom in and out navigation is not synced to the scroll wheel, we could go to the preferences and change it. With the 3D environment set to gradient, we can use the background as a helpful guide to position the avatar. The darker area is the horizon. Its relationship to the avatar changes when we move the avatar up or down. Now it's your turn to try. Pause the video and try to navigate in VStitcher with your mouse. We can also use the navigation arrows to the right of the 3D window to navigate. We can zoom in and out and reset the view. The default view is always centered front. We can use preset camera views for the front, sides, and back to rotate around the avatar. On the keyboard, we can use the left and right arrows to rotate the avatar in the 3D window. And we can use the arrow keys in our keyboard to navigate and zoom in and out. Pause the video here if you'd like to try navigating with the 3D views and navigation arrows. The default browser navigation mode also includes the focus mode. To use focus mode, we right-click on the garment or the avatar and then click Focus. When we do this, the software changes the pivot point of the rotation in the 3D window to the point which we have clicked. Now when we move the cursor around the avatar, we have a more flexible floating camera view. Because we're now moving around the pivot point, we can rotate in new directions. In the focus mode, we can press down the mouse's scroll wheel and pan in the 3D window. We can also do this by pressing down the spacebar on the keyboard. Then with the mouse, we click and drag the cursor to move. To exit the focus mode, we right-click the garment or avatar again and then click Navigate. Alternatively, we could click on the Reset View button. If we are zoomed in close to the garment, we can press and hold Alt to navigate using the cursor. If you're a Mac user, press and hold the Option key. Great! Now it's your turn to try navigating in the focus mode. The Maya navigation mode is only available in versions 2021.2 and newer. To enable the Maya navigation mode, we go to Preferences and change the navigation mode to Maya. This mode is great if you're already used to using the Maya software for 3D creations and you're used to the navigation mode in that software. In Preferences, when we change the navigation mode to Maya, an information tooltip icon is displayed next to the drop-down box. When we hover the cursor over the icon, information is displayed on how to navigate using this mode. Let's click OK to save the changes. Have you changed the navigation mode to the Maya navigation mode? Now let's learn how to navigate with the Maya navigation mode. We need to press on the Alt key when navigating in the 3D window. For Mac users, this is the Option key. To rotate in the 3D window, we press and hold the Alt key and use the left mouse button. Next, we drag the cursor to change the viewpoint as required. To pan, we press Alt and the scroll wheel on the mouse. Then we drag the cursor to pan. Alternatively, we press the space bar and the scroll wheel on the mouse, then drag the cursor to pan. To zoom in and out, we use the scroll wheel on the mouse. Or we press down Alt and use the right mouse button, then drag the cursor up to zoom out or down to zoom in. In addition, we can use the keyboard shortcut F. If no pieces are selected, pressing F zooms into the avatar and garment in general. When a piece is selected, pressing F zooms in on the 3D bounding box of the selected piece. Similarly, we can use the 3D views and navigation buttons on the top left to view the garment. It's your turn to try. If you're using version 2021.2 and newer, you are able to set keyboard shortcuts for the 3D views. To do so, go to VSwitcher, Keyboard, or Edit Keyboard if you're on a PC, and search for the 3D Environment section. There should already be some shortcuts set up, but we can change them as needed. In the 3D window, click on the keyboard keys to automatically navigate to the relevant 3D view. When we right-click in the 3D view, some options are displayed. To view the options, we must right-click using the mouse and hold. When we place the cursor on the background, then right-click the mouse and hold, these options are displayed. Show 2D window or maximize 3D window, reset view, 3D annotations, load related avatar, and edit lights. When we place the cursor on the avatar, then right-click the mouse and hold, these options are displayed. Edit avatar, avatar resources, focus, hide avatar, snapshot, resources, undress, and load related avatar. We also get different options when we right-click on a pattern, an edge, or a line, and artwork or trims. Those options will be covered in a separate video. To select from the right-click options, we need to drag the cursor over the desired option and release the button. For example, we can hide the avatar and show the avatar again. Give it a try. In this video, we've shown how to navigate in the 3D window. For more information, visit our Help Center. In this video, we'll introduce you to the basic browseware file types. When we first save a file, we're asked what file type we would like to save, as well as where we want to save the file. For garments, there are two different file types. One is garment BW, and the other is garment plus avatar and accessories BW. A garment BW file contains our 2D pattern pieces and our finished 3D garment. A garment plus avatar and accessories BW file contains our 2D pattern pieces and our finished 3D garment, as well as the avatar and corresponding accessories such as shoes. We recommend saving files as garment plus avatar and accessories as default. That means that anyone else opening the file has the right avatar and accessories. Alternatively, if you have already saved a file as a BW file, you can change the mode for the file so that it is saved with or without avatars and accessories according to what you want. To change the mode of the BW file, we can select or clear this option. The change of the mode will take effect the next time the file is saved. And that is the key information you need to know about browseware file types. For more information, go to our help website.